Welcome to Bad at Goodbyes. Each week on our show, we spotlight species from the IUCN Critically Endangered Red List. These are plants and animals with decreasing populations, nearing the edges of extinction. So we'll share species research, information, and conservation proposals, and then we'll spend the end of the show opening a space for contemplation and awe. We'll improvise a soundscape of gentleness, of reflection, of delight, and maybe of grieving. Without focused conservation activity and significant societal shift, many of these species may not survive the 21st century. And so perhaps we might acknowledge their journey with a moment of our attention, a recognition of our kinship, and with a commitment to personal and systemic change. Thank you for listening. On today's show, we consider the Bethany Beach Firefly. The Bethany Beach Firefly is a critically endangered insect native to the eastern coast of North America, specifically the U.S. states of Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. Its scientific name is Photuris bethaniensis, and it was first described in 1953. The Bethany Beach Firefly is a small firefly with an elongated flat body measuring roughly 1/3 of an inch in length and 1/8 of an inch in width. Entomologists divide insect anatomy into 3 sections: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. The firefly's head has 2 large compound eyes adapted for the dim light of dusk and nighttime. Between the eyes are a pair of segmented antennae covered in sense receptors, and they have mandibulate mouthparts. So that's made up of a labrum, which is like an upper lip holding 3 teeth, the mandibles themselves, which are like sharp horizontal pincers, the maxillae, which are tiny palps. Palps are like small antennae, but for taste sensing. And then at the bottom is the labium, which is like their lower lip. As larvae, they are primarily carnivorous, and these mandibles are well developed for capturing and consuming prey. However, in adult Bethany Beach Firefly, the mandibles are reduced in size as their diet is not focused on solid food. Many adult fireflies, including the Bethany Beach Firefly, consume solid food sparingly or not even at all. So instead, as adults, their mouth parts are mainly used for drinking nectar and water. So that's the head. Next, the thorax is the middle section of the firefly's body. A hardened structure called the pronotum covers the top of the thorax, protecting the firefly's internal organs. The Bethany Beach Firefly has a distinctive dark brown or black mark on their pronotum that helps in identification. Three pairs of long, jointed legs extend from the thorax, enabling the firefly to walk, climb, and grasp onto vegetation. They have two pairs of wings. The hardened forewings, called the elytra, are a protective cover for the delicate membranous hind wings that are used for flight. The elytra are a reddish-brown tan striped with darker brown, and these hind wings, the flight wings, are translucent. Next, the abdomen is the large posterior section of the firefly's body. It holds the digestive and reproductive organs, as well as spiracles. These are tiny openings connected to tube-like structures adapted for respiration, for breathing. The firefly intakes oxygen through the spiracles, circulated to its internal organs, which is then expelled as carbon dioxide. The abdomen also holds the firefly's bioluminescent organ. That's the part that lights up. This organ is fittingly and gorgeously called the lantern. So the most simplified explanation of bioluminescence is that it is a chemical reaction that, in the presence of oxygen, releases energy as light. The firefly synthesizes a kind of simple energy storage molecule called luciferin that, in the presence of oxygen and the enzyme luciferase, releases energy in the form of light. And so when a firefly illuminates, its nervous system directs oxygen into the lantern. There, the luciferase binds to the luciferin, catalyzing a reaction which releases excess energy as photons, these tiny packets of light. Firefly have remarkable control over this process. By regulating oxygen flow, they can create specific flashing patterns used for communication and attracting mates. In the case of the Bethany Beach Firefly, males emit a bright greenish double flash with these two quick bursts of light close together, typically repeating every few seconds. This double flash pattern is a courtship initiation. So the males, while in flight, will emit their double flash to attract females. Females, perched on nearby vegetation, will respond with a single flash if they are receptive to mating, so signaling their willingness and also their location. During copulation, which occurs on vegetation or on the ground, so like not in flight, the male uses its sex organ to transfer a spermatophore into the female's reproductive opening and into its reproductive tract. This spermatophore contains sperm cells and also additional nutrients to provide the female with energy and resources for egg production. The released sperm travel to the female's spermatheca. This is a storage organ which allows her to control her fertilization over time. So she can lay fertilized eggs at a later date and lay multiple distinct clutches even after a single mating. Eggs are laid in moist soil, in leaf litter, or like rotting wood, and the eggs will hatch after about 2 to 3 weeks. The life cycle of the firefly is surprising, or I should say, at least I did not realize the arc of their lives. Here's what it looks like. These eggs, after 2 to 3 weeks, hatch into a larval stage. Larvae are small, they do not have wings, they have a segmented oval-shaped body, and they glow. They emit a little bioluminescence that scientists believe is an adaptation to ward off predators. These larvae are dietary generalists. They will consume soft-bodied invertebrate like snails and worms, and also plant material like berries. As they grow over a 2-year period, they repeatedly molt to shed their exoskeleton, getting larger and larger. And then in the winter of their 2nd year, they burrow into the soil to pupate. Roughly a month later, at the beginning of spring, they undergo metamorphosis, breaking down their pupa body, triggering biochemical reactions that transform them into an adult firefly. The pupa emerges from the ground wildly changed. Now capable of flight, this adult firefly has only about 8 weeks to reproduce before it dies. Its very short adult life is primarily focused on mating. So to lay out this approximately 2.5-year lifespan, 2 weeks as an egg, 2 years as larva, 1 month as a metamorphosing pupa, and just 2 months as an adult. This small sliver of their life as the thing that we know, summer lantern, soon extinguished. In the Dream, 4 poems by Basho. At sundown, the fragile light of a firefly. A fool in the dark, hunting fireflies, grabs a bramble. Watching fireflies, our boatman is drunk. His boat is unsteady. Blade of grass, firefly lands, takes off again. A poem by Nobuko Katsura. Firefly night, wearing my kimono loosely to meet him. And a final haiku by me. Our daughter dancing, oh, to remember that now. Summer firefly. In the dream. The Bethany Beach Firefly is native to the eastern coast of North America, specifically a chain of barrier islands in Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia, with firefly populations found in roughly 35 distinct, non-contiguous sites across a roughly 150-mile span of coastline. The Bethany Beach Firefly is restricted to interdunal swales. So restricted means that we believe that the firefly can only survive in this specific habitat. And interdunal swales are this rare, unusual ecosystem that arises when rainwater and fresh water that bubbles up from the groundwater table collects in these small valleys between coastal sand dunes. These are a kind of constrained freshwater marshland bordered by dune slopes on both sides and near the sea. These swales grow dense vegetation, grasses, sedges, ferns, and shrubs like bayberry and groundsel tree, and they host thriving populations of small invertebrae, like the kind that firefly larvae feed upon. This is a super specific and very dynamic ecosystem, reshaped by changes in the water level, by wind and sand drift. And all populations of the Bethany Beach Firefly are found within 1,500 feet of the ocean, but inhabiting the freshwater foliage that thrives in these interdunal swales. This mid-Atlantic coastal region has a subtropical climate with hot and humid summers and cooler winters. Summer high temperatures average in the mid-80s Fahrenheit and winter lows near freezing. Annual rainfall is approximately 42 inches. The Bethany Beach Firefly shares its home with eastern painted turtle, needlepod rush, piping plover, common reed, raccoon, bayberry, American bullfrog, sandpiper, raspberry, rabbit, river otter, silvergrass, green frog, salt marsh hay, squirrel, gull, osprey, sanderling, northern water snake, three-square needle rush, and many, many more. The Bethany Beach Firefly faces a range of threats, primarily from human activity that encroaches upon and degrades their specialized habitat. In the 20th century, the rapid development of coastal areas for residential and commercial purposes has led to the direct destruction and fragmentation of the firefly's interdunal swale habitat. And this concern persists. We have two recent specific examples of this. Observational surveys between 1998 and 1999 found a population of the Bethany Beach firefly thriving in an interdunal swale on private land, like roughly 3 miles north of Bethany Beach itself. And then, following the construction of new housing on this location, follow-up surveys from 2019 to 2023 found no firefly on the site. The second example is even more insidious. In 2019, developer Louis Capano III exploited a loophole in Delaware environmental laws to build a roadway and new houses on a Bethany Beach firefly swale habitat. This was a designated wetland protected by state law from being filled in for new construction. So to get around that prohibition, Capano builds a raised roadway. So technically not filling in the land, but of course this road on stilts blocks sunlight to all of the plants beneath, and the habitat is destroyed. Recent surveys found no Bethany Beach firefly at the site. And Capano made upwards of $10 million in real estate profits from this quote-unquote technically legal build. Construction of houses, roads, and infrastructure not only eliminates swales directly, but also disrupts the ecosystem's hydrological balance. So the increased demand for fresh water in coastal communities leads to increased groundwater pumping, lowering the water table, and drying out the interdunal swales. Relatedly, increased residential development has led to increased pesticide use, particularly pesticides used for mosquito control, which also pose a direct threat to the fireflies. It's chemicals end up in the swales through runoff or drift, contaminating the soil and poisoning both the firefly themselves and the larva's prey. Another result of coastal development is light pollution. These are artificial lights from homes, roads, and businesses, which disrupt the firefly's nocturnal mating behavior. The fireflies rely on their bioluminescent signals for courtship, and excessive light interferes with their ability to find and attract mates. And lastly, human-induced climate change is causing sea levels to rise, increasing the frequency and intensity of offshore storms, which results in more frequent and severe saltwater flooding of the swales. This flooding threatens the foliage upon which the firefly relies. Using an intermediate climate change forecasting model, so this is in between like worst case and best case. So the intermediate model predicts that 93% of the Bethany Beach firefly habitat is expected to be degraded or destroyed by the end of this century. Unfortunately, almost no protections are in place for the Bethany Beach firefly or its habitat. In October 2024, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did accept a proposal to include the firefly in the Federal Endangered Species Act. The public commenting period for that proposal ended in December 2024, and yet, as of June 11th, 2025, protection of the Bethany Beach firefly has not been codified into law. I double-checked the National Archives Code of Federal Regulations. So this is Title 50, Chapter 1, Subchapter B, Part 17, Subpart D, 17.47. This is the part of the Endangered Species Act that governs insects. The Bethany Beach firefly is still not listed. Fortunately, most of the current fireflies' population inhabit state-protected land, like Cape Henlopen State Park, Delaware Seashore State Park, Fenwick Island State Park, and False Cape State Park. And regular citizens, folks like you and I, can help protect the Bethany Beach firefly and participate in the general conservation of the fireflies, just like even in our own backyards. A primary threat to all firefly is artificial light, which, as mentioned, disrupts their bioluminescent mating and communication signals, which impedes successful reproduction. And so, simply by turning off exterior light after dusk, we can help. The Bethany Beach firefly has been considered critically endangered on the IUCN Red List since 2021, and their population is currently in decline. Recent counts estimate less than 1,800 Bethany Beach firefly remain in the wild. Information for today's show about the Bethany Beach Firefly was compiled from the Annual Review of Cell and Developmental Biology, Volume 14, from the Coleopterus Bulletin, Volume 58, Number 3, from the Delaware News Journal, June 21, 2019, from Insects, Volume 15, Number 1, from the IUCN, from the National Archives Code of Federal Regulations, from PLOS 1, November 17, 2021, from the Proceedings of the United States National Museum, Volume 103, from the Sierra Club Delaware Chapter, from the University of Minnesota Department of Entomology, from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, from the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation. For more information about the conservation and protection of the Bethany Beach Firefly, please see the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation at xerces.org. That's xerces.org. And so now I would like to perform some music in hopes of opening a space to contemplate the other lives with whom we share our earth. I do not intend to extract meaning from or push meaning upon the Bethany Beach Firefly. Instead, I want this music to be an expression of awe and delight, a moment to consider my relationship to other life, and in particular, as some of that life may near extinction. And so I will sit in this space of sound and awe and reflection, and I warmly invite you to join me. I honor the life force of the Bethany Beach Firefly. I will commit its name to my record. And I am so grateful to have shared time on our planet with this glowing being. And I lament the ways in which I and my species have harmed and diminished this species. I grieve. And so in the name of the Bethany Beach Firefly, I pledge to reduce my consumption, my carbon footprint, my wastefulness. I pledge to acknowledge and attempt to address the costs of my actions and my inactions. And I pledge to resist the harm of plant and animal kin and their habitat by individuals, corporations, and governments. I forever pledge my song to the witness and memory of all life, to a broad celebration of biodiversity, and to the total liberation of all beings. This has been Bad at Goodbyes. Thank you for listening. Until next time, let's take care of each other and all of our kin.